Perfect.
Yeah, I guess we are live. Just wait for some time to let people pour in a little bit. They probably might take, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes, and then slowly they will start pouring in. And so, hi everyone. Did you tell your friends that you're going live?
Yeah, I've shared it on some of the groups.
Okay, I see. Let's see. Hello everyone. People who are joining in, just keep putting your names, your research topic, and your affiliations, so that we get to know each other. We have a very special guest right from the city of Oslo in Norway. She has been a very close friend of mine when she was in India. Her name is Vandana Ravindran, and she is a postdoctoral researcher at Oslo Medical University. Is that so, Vandana?
It's the Faculty of Medicine, yeah, at the University of Oslo.
Right. And so Vandana, I will ask you to introduce yourself definitely, specifically about the research topic, the exciting stuff that you are doing, but let people pour in a little bit more, and then we can wait for some more people to join in, and then we can start.
Sounds good.
So usually what we see is that so it's more because of the timing, that sometimes what happens is usually what happens is that after the session is over, then people start watching a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe it's probably because of the time issues or something like that.
That's true. At least one good thing with the lockdown is that you get connected to so many people across through all these platforms.
Right, absolutely.
Which otherwise probably we wouldn't have taken efforts to do that. So
right. So I I tried doing something in a DA, when we used to do the meetups and all. I don't know whether you remember, but then I realized, like, why not do something similar? But right now we can't like meet each other, so why not just do it online? And that's how we started out with this idea of Saturdays with Sourish.
That's
and
good.
Reach out,
And I think the good thing about this is when you have like people from different backgrounds, like researchers, basically PhD students or postdocs or PIs, you can also make some really good collaborations when you share like what you're doing. So you can get in touch, get connected. So that's pretty cool when you open up.
Right. So, hi, Victor. I think Victor, you are from Nigeria or Benin. I'm forgetting. Forgive me. I'm just forgetting where you are from. All right, so we are getting more people. Thank you, Victor. And if you want us to grow, you should bring your friends. You should share it with your friends, and you should tell them, like, we are trying to do something, you know. Oh, you're right now in Mysore. Wow. So you're from Nigeria. Okay. So, okay. All right. So you're in the Indian time zone right now. Great. Other people, keep putting your names and say hi and hello to each other. It's just all about community building, right? Thank you, Victor. So today we have, as I was saying, we have a very, very special guest with us, and we're going to talk about something which is extremely important for any visa student, specifically for PhD students. And maybe we will wait for another 2 minutes, and then we will start, and we will wait for people to keep joining in, right? And in between, if you have any questions, this is extremely important topic, very serious topic. If you have any questions whatsoever related, don't hesitate. Just keep putting on the chat. I will keep watching the chat box, so I'll get back to you. We will be addressing you, and Vandana is there, and we'll be addressing your questions. So yeah, so without any further ado, I welcome Vandana Ravindran, one of my very close friends, and also he used to be our doctoral student at the university where I am a professor. That's DAIICT in India, and she is right now a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Oslo, and that's in Norway. So it's pretty cold and dark out there. And I would now, Vandana, if you can talk a little bit about, because it's something that is so relevant that you are doing, about your own research right now, the current research that you are working on. So if you can talk a little bit about your current research and how it is a continuation of what you have been doing when you were doing your PhD at the ICT.
Sure.
So let's start with that. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vandana Ravindran. I am currently a postdoctoral fellow, and I've been awarded the Marie Curie Fellowship, Scientia Fellowship, and that's how I joined the University of Oslo. Previously, I was awarded the Royal Society's Newton International Fellowship. I was at the MRC University of Glasgow Center of Virus Research 2 years, where I worked on looking at how viruses interact with a host. And in this context, it's humans. And the way I got into this is in my PhD. My background is completely biology. I did chemistry, botany, and zoology. And in my PhD, I went a bit off track and decided to do something more theoretical. And I took up hardcore courses in mathematics and computer science in order to build my strength in computational biology. And that's what I do now. So I'm a computational biologist. I use graph theory, a technique in mathematics called as networks. Like your social networks, you have your friends, and the same context. I build these networks of proteins and different genes of the human body, and see how a virus interacts with these proteins and genes in the human body in order to identify new antiviral drug targets. So pretty relevant to the context, what's the scenario now. And this is a continuation of my PhD project. So in my PhD, I was looking at complex networks, but it was more an application, more of a theoretical domain with a bit of application. So I wanted to go more into the application side, and that's how I started off with my first postdoc of applying this theory of control, which is in engineering, in context of looking at how viruses control a system. And that was my first postdoc project. And then in this current fellowship, I wanted to extend it a bit more and see the relation between cancer and viruses, because we know certain viruses do cause cancer, and how I can design specific treatment strategies for cancer patients, or what you all have heard now called as drug repurposing, as to, there is a drug available for another disease, and can we use it for a different disease? So that's the current project I am working on, trying to broaden my scope, still keeping in the context of complex networks.
Great, great. So what today we have a very interesting. We were discussing for some time, me and Vandana, that what could be a very interesting topic and also extremely important for research students and specifically for PhD students. And we came out with something with this particular topic, which is how to actually make sure that your research as a student, when you have to do, you can't do research without your supervisor, right? Whether you're a PhD student or a master student or whatever that is, and how to smooth sail, in terms of what are the things that you should make sure that you do not do, and what are the things that you should make sure that you do. So primarily what we are going to discuss is primarily on 3 topics, but there will be plenty of other discussions around it. The first topic that we are going to touch upon is how to, the very beginning, which is that how do you even select or choose a supervisor? And that's a kind of like very, very important, not just for you, but the supervisor also, because it's kind of almost like a marriage. Like once you're done with it, it becomes very difficult, and it's both ways. If it is a bad marriage, it's going to affect both the sides. So it's extremely important that you take your time and you try to figure out who would be the best alignment in terms of what you really want to do, and you get pretty good time in your first year as a PhD student or as a research student, and you should utilize that time very well. So I would like to know a little bit from Vandana's own experience. She has an amazing kind of very interesting kind of background that she came from a very biological bioscience background, a hardcore bioscience background in her master's, and then she entered, right, Vandana, you entered into a very mathematical modeling kind of a background where your supervisor was essentially a mathematician, right? So what was that journey, in that selection process, and how, when you came to DICT with that kind of background, and DICT being a completely tech university, what was that experience? If you can share that with people over here.
Sure. So, I think I was very ambitious in a sense that I was reading a lot, and then I realized that maybe I should get into computational biology, because I still had interest in computing, computer science, and in mathematics. And so in that context, I applied to DICT, which is in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. And that turned out to be a completely technology-based university.
Mm-hmm.
But they were still offering some parts in like biomedical sciences. So I thought that maybe this is the best place for me to get in, since I would be surrounded by all tech geeks, and probably I can do more of interdisciplinary research, which was my main idea. And I had the DST Inspire Fellowship for my PhD. So that's how I joined into DICT, through that fellowship. Initially, I did face a bit of a challenge, which I wouldn't say, because I did realize that I was not fitting into the right model of what DICT had. And there was nothing transdisciplinary sciences. It was all completely technical related courses. And there was this mandate of having to undergo these courses, which was really good, because now I really appreciate I did those courses, because now I understand what I am doing rather than just applying something and saying, oh, this is how it works. But now I can actually select what works, what doesn't work, because now I have I wouldn't say very strong background, but I know how in biology and how the
Right.
model actually align. So that was really good that I took up these courses. But initially, I did face difficulties in choosing a PhD supervisor. So I had initially a supervisor. We didn't gel along. And then after 2 years of my PhD, I moved and changed my supervisor again, which was a very tough process. But I am happy that I made this decision because I think the freedom that I got from my supervisor was main in me actually even being getting so many fellowships and doing really good in my research.
Right. And when you look back, without kind of like naming anybody, but when you look back, Vandana, and if you want to give some tips or advices, because that you actually went through that process of not able to select properly initially, and then it took you some time to actually get back on track. What advice would you give um, to people who are over here and to other viewers who would be viewing us? What
I think
Yeah.
one main would be that be sure when you are selecting your supervisor that you know what work they do and whether that work aligns in context of what you really want to do. Most sometimes it happens that most projects, like in other institutes, there is a specific PhD position opened out for a project, and so you have a specific topic already in mind, that this is what you have to work on. In some cases, it's that, like in instance, in my case, I had my own project which I wanted to work on. So that makes it even more challenging that you need to identify a supervisor who is also interested in your project and has some area of expertise in that project.
I personally feel, when that even before you come into the university, when you're applying, and Vandana, just keep telling me, what's your opinion about this. But when you're applying, when you're selecting or shortlisting universities, so first of all, you should not shortlist in terms of the university, but you should rather go
Yes,
specifically into the department. If And then even within the department, you should go specifically into what's the current research going on in that department, which actually is aligned with what you are really excited to do, right? So that's the
absolutely.
first thing. And so if you are a master student, or even if you want to straight away jump from your undergrad into PhD, that's the very first thing you should do. It's almost like in a very structured way, prepare a spreadsheet, sort of like an Excel sheet, and do that. And then also identify who are the faculties who are actively, like in the last 3 years, who are actually working on that. It's not like somebody who has done it, but done it like some 7 years ago, and then who is not doing, no more interested in that, in pursuing that. So you need to understand that that particular person is in the thick of the game right now, right? And then you can, another thing that I would suggest that you should do is to figure out whether uh, uh, of course the publication, and you can figure this out all through the publications, like last 3 years, what kind of publications happened over there, what kind of projects are going on, and so on. And also you should figure out who are the current students who are working on topics that are kind of related to what sort of you want to do, and try to connect with them, connect with the students, and try to have an understanding of what is the style of the professor in terms of conducting what kind of professor he is in terms of conducting the research. There are different types of professor who would conduct research in their own style, in their own way,
Yeah,
and try to have an understanding of whether that really resonates with the way you would like to work in a lab or in a group. The other thing, it also helps you to know who would be your seniors, and kind of who might be your seniors rather, and whether you can gel well with them, sort of whether they are cooperative, whether they are supportive, and so on and so forth. You get some sort of a vibe actually, and then when you create your SOP or whatever, your statement of purpose, and when you are applying, you have a much clearer idea of, okay, this is where I want to apply, and this is why I want to apply over here. And you have actually increased your chances of getting accepted also.
Yes.
Because from the other end, other side's point of view, if you look at it from the advisor's point of view, I would rather love that a student actually do that homework before contacting me.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it also helps because if you have to give a motivation letter or say why you're interested in that project, and you can only do that when you have done some bit of your own research and you have passion for it.
Right.
If you just say that, oh, I want a PhD degree just for the sake of a qualification, then that completely reflects on your SOP or statement of purpose when you apply for a position. So I think it's absolutely important that you have to choose an area that you really are interested in. And as Sourish said, that absolutely right, that you find out the universities not just by the name, but actually by the professors
Right.
who do some really good research, and then go in for the university. Because at times it's that the professor has really good collaborations, and that what leads you to your postdoc, or for you even having an independent group later, like an early career researcher, because that's how you build the network. If you go into like someone who does like clothes science, then your scope of broadening is really, really less. And so it's absolutely important that you find out based on a professor supervisor of your interest rather than just the university.
Right. Right. It's extremely important that you do it that way. And so that's one aspect of how would you even select before even entering your, you know, before entering a university. Now, but once you enter a university, again, don't hurry into it, because you will get a good time, like almost I think 1 year, right, Vandana, that where you can
Yes,
actually.
I think yes. It depends on like different countries. Like
Right.
I think if I remember, EU is 3.5 for a PhD, so you are more in a tight. Whereas in
Mm.
India, it's minimum 5 years. So
Right. It's pretty much the US model in India. So
yes,
essentially,
so you have only a minimum limit. Then it's like off limit after that. So unlike European countries where you
right,
have like time frame.
right.
Uh,
What about Scandinavia? Like, what's the situation? Because it might be that there are some undergrad or master students who would be watching.
yes, it's,
Yeah.
if I remember right, it's 3.5 years.
Okay. Okay.
And
And
everybody follows the score credit system and like courses, or you attend workshops and all of that.
okay. Okay. So so in that period also is extremely important, because whatever time you get to know the professor with whom you have already figured out that this might be my match, and you have already started a communication with the professor. And so this is kind of like, don't hurry into the marriage. That's what I would say. That date really well. And it also helps the professor as well,
Yes,
because it's waste of time for both the ends actually. It's
true.
kind of quite draining if you have to like leave somebody. For you also it's very draining, and especially if it happens after like say 1-2 years or something and you have to leave. Or for the professor also it's quite draining, right?
Yes,
And so so the dating period, what I call, has to be very important,
yeah.
right? And what about Vandana, if you can, what may be some of those stuffs that you really should do during that dating period, which when you are kind of trying to understand your professor, like in the US model, before what happens is that you are still to give your PhD qualifying exam. That's the US model, that you come in as a PhD student, but you are still not a PhD candidate unless you are done with your qualifying exam. And then once you're done with your qualifying exam, and then comes comprehensive. But in India, what happens is, in most places, that there's no real qualifying exam as such, but you just immediately go and qualify the comprehensive exam, right?
Yeah.
So, but during that time, you get like almost like 1 year. In maybe in other places you might get 4 to 5 months, especially in the European Union. So, what do you suggest one should be really doing during that knowing each other phase, or what do you suggest somebody should not do during the
So I kind of take that 1 year period as a kind of a rotation, which most labs do offer. You can rotate to see which lab suits you the best, or which project you like the most, and then you can also know whether you're really interested in that project or not. In India, we do not have that rotation system. But one
right?
good thing about DICT is that you have this mentor kind of thing, and then you do these courses. So the way I could figure out is that I would take up courses of professors whom I felt that would be more inclined to my project. And when I start taking up these courses and then interacting with them during the course, going outside of the class, like going and meeting them and then discussing with them, that was really helpful, because then that gives an scope of seeing if you can really gel well with your supervisor or not, without yet giving too many promises that, oh, I am willing to join your lab and I want to do this, like, that happens in your first year. You're so super excited that you need a
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you go on like, oh, I like your research and this is the best research and you have the most wonderful publication and I would want
Yeah. Yeah.
so that sounds nice in black and white, but in practicality it should be that even you're interested in it. And so it's always good that you don't put too much of hopes on the supervisor, not tell them that, oh, you are like super interested, unless you are really interested in their project. Because as you said, that even it's time that they have to take out. So this 1 year kind of is really nice, because you can like go and explore opportunities and see who is the best professor, who is more close to your research area, and how friendly they are, because that's really important when you get closer in time as you finish, that you need to have this not only like a student teacher spoon feeding relation, but the relation between the supervisor and a PhD student should be more like a colleague discussing projects, not like a master's or a bachelor class that you undertake. I think you would also agree the same with me.
Right. Right. So one thing that I would like to point out is that in the early stage, there's a lot of, when during these interactions and engagements, try to ask for papers, right? And especially some early papers that you can ask for your, potential supervisor. So let's just call the supervisor potential supervisor, right? And try to see, you know, as you are reading the paper, definitely initially when you will be trying to read papers, if you are not, if you don't have a very strong research background in your masters, it will be quite heavy on you. Reading research papers is not that easy. One of the reasons why we made Rax was to make sure how to make that process easy. But then what happens is that you can, when you go back to your, try to go back to your potential supervisor and try to present what you are, or discuss what you understood out of those papers. So the more you get more papers, try to get more papers from them and try to explain to them what you understood, and see how they are helping you out in understanding certain things, and so on. See whether they are able to see whether that vibe is coming through, that that the pointers that they would be giving, go and look there, or go watch that particular thing, or read this particular thing, and this will help you to understand this better. Or or is she or he willing to take more time with you, spend more time with you, uh, to at least considerable, reasonable time with you, to uh, to make you understand certain things, to get those preliminary groundwork done, to help you to do that. Because you see, what I'll tell you something, that if a potential supervisor is not willing to spend time with you during the so-called dating period, then something may be off. Because dating is not a one-way process. So if the supervisor is not interested in you, it's almost like I'm trying to date with a girl and the girl is not interested in me, right? So it has to be, the interest has to be both ways, and you need to pick that signal quite early on, that if that interest is not coming in, if there is not a little bit of interest or excitement about from the supervisor's end also to work with you, to have you as a student, it would not go very well, even if you say yes, or if you commit, or even if the supervisor commits, right? I guess, Vandana, if you have more comments on it or other kind of comments on it, then
Yeah, that's true. And also it's important that in the process, when you try to explore the research area of your interest and you are asking for papers, it's also really important that you don't get lost when you read these papers, because at an initial stage of PhD this happens a lot. You read too
right,
many things, you're so confused, you tend to be off track of what you really wanted to do, especially
right,
when you are
right,
starting on a project. That happens a lot. And I think most of them would agree with me that at the initial stage you are like, oh, this sounds so interesting, maybe I should try and do this. Oh, this sounds really interesting. But whereas if you are in a PhD that is like inclined to a particular project where the supervisor has like, this is a 4-year funded PhD project, then you are kind of more focused, in though you can be still deviated in terms of what technique you're using or what your interest is, although you fit into the overall research topic. So that's where I think it's really important that in the process of reading, you yourself know how to filter out things. And if you're not able to do that, then go and talk to the professor saying that I think I'm getting lost here, and it would be nice if you could kindly redirect me or tell me if this is right or wrong. And that's something the at initial stage I expect that the supervisor should also understand,
mm, mm,
that when I am joining as a PhD student, um, it kind of is that I am not a domain expert, whereas you're a domain expert and I'm trying to be a domain expert as you. So it's not that if I knew everything, then I mean, I could have just, I don't know, would have done my own research. So
right,
I think it's really important that the supervisor also understands
right,
that at initial stage, any PhD student expects that there could be more communication that's really required, and that the student needs to have more focus and help them gain that focus.
right, right. Uh, so, uh, so let me just quickly see if there are some questions or comments. So there is Prashun from DISD. Hi, Prashun. And so, Prashant, what exactly you are in your MSc? Okay, so I think the question that Prashant put in was that what are scopes for research after MSc data science? So that's a new Vandana. That's probably, I don't know whether you know it or not, but there's a new stream that the ICT has come up with, which is MSc in data science. Earlier, there wasn't any specialization in an MSc, right? And so the question, I guess, is what can person do after doing the MSc program, after graduating out of the MSc program in data science? So uh,
Um,
there are a lot of things in your area actually, which you can.
I think there's a lot of scope, and it's highly competitive as well, to be honest, because um, there is every second university or like every second course that offers a data science course. So it's highly competitive, but at least you have a lot of prospects. So whether it's like in industrial prospects or if interested in academic, there is an academic scope to it. And one good thing is that you can broaden your scope. So if you have like data science, it doesn't matter. Like if I've done in biology and then tomorrow I want to go and do physics or like anything else, I think my scope still opens up, especially now.
Right.
It just depends on what you would want to do. And the best way to figure that out is to see the companies that do some hardcore data science stuff. I mean, even banks have data science.
Yeah, that's what
Like,
I'm saying. Bank,
yeah,
investment, VC funding.
investment. Yeah, so you can make a profile and just internet search of which companies do what if you're interested in that side of it. Interested in research, you can soon apply after masters as well. You don't need to have a PhD to do research. So there's plenty of scope. It depends on what you are interested in, and I would suggest that you explore both um, for now,
Right,
and then you can select
right.
where at the end of the.
Also, there are a lot of very good internship opportunities in multiple different places. So, uh, I can name whatever is coming in at the top of my mind. There is something called Allen NLP. So let me just Allen AI Institute, Paul Allen AI Institute. So that's uh, that's an institute where they have plenty of different internship opportunities for people who would like to do stuff related to data science, machine learning. And then there are other, apart from the bigger names, the bigger companies like Microsoft or Google or
Yeah,
Facebook or Amazon. Apart from the bigger names, there are also a lot of startups, growth stage startups, plenty, not just in India, but in Europe, in Southeast Asia, in US. Uh,
you
you can
can write to
always, yeah,
Sourish as well. I
right.
said, good, you can write to Sourish as well and say, I
Yeah,
would.
yeah, you can write to me as well. Actually, you can write to me. Let me just put my email address.
I think it's good to do an internship before, like you then know what
Right,
you're interested in. So
right,
you
right.
maybe.
So coming back to the discussion, so the second point that I thought I would be covering today is is again another interesting thing, which means that let's say that you have already chosen your, yeah, everything is all fine, the marriage is done. Now you really need to know what are the roles, what are the specific roles of a supervisor. You need to be very clear on that. Like what should, your expectation should be aligned, right? You cannot expect something from your supervisor that the supervisor is not really supposed to do, right? And then you cannot complain that, hey, my supervisor is not really good, right? And so Vandana, if you, because you have taken, currently, you have taken this course about the, how about supervision itself. So can we talk a little bit about that? About this particular course on supervision, and what do you think? What are the common misconceptions that a lot of students have? When they enter into a PhD program about what to expect from their supervisor.
Yeah, so I think it was a really nice course that I took on like research management and supervision. And it was really interesting in a sense that they are training us to be better supervisors or understand a relation when we have students coming in. And when in course in while doing this course, it then made me reflect back that okay, some of these things I think what my supervisor did was right, and some of this was wrong. But at that stage, probably I was like, okay, this doesn't seem really good. And one important thing was that, and which I really appreciate, was that me and my supervisor would spend a lot of time in understanding the research topic, and that she would actively participate with me in like formulating. So I had two supervisors. I even had a co-supervisor, and that really worked out well because my main supervisor was a mathematician and my co-supervisor was applied computational person. So that really gelled well. So I could discuss with both. And the whole idea of getting a co-supervisor was actually initiated by my supervisor itself, that maybe it would be nice to have another person and we can work around much better. And in that process, I think I really liked, for me, was that my supervisor and me had a very friendly relationship. In terms of openly, I could say that I don't think this works, or I like this is
Right.
wrong what you're saying. This doesn't work like this.
Yeah, right. Right.
So that was really good thing that I could openly tell her, saying that I don't think this actually works now, and probably this concept is not right.
So what
And
is
she
that?
happily
Yeah.
accepted. So that was really nice, and I appreciate that, because it then makes it like, even if you're a supervisor, you don't expect that your supervisor should know everything. They are
Right.
obviously human and they have their own specialty or domain, but that doesn't mean that you expect them to know everything in that domain.
Right.
And in that way, it was really good that if it was like I'm reading a paper and if I had to understand the mathematical equations in it, which I couldn't do by myself, I would go and explain the biology part of the whole paper to her and then say, now, can you tell me what the mathematics is all about? And that time that you need with your supervisor, at least when you're in your second or third year, is really important, for then in later stages when you have to be more independent and don't need too much of interaction with your supervisor. I think that was an important thing that I really even learned and on the course, is that give time to your student, at least at the initial stage. Also, there
Right.
is a fine line of spoon feeding. So you
Right.
don't,
Yeah. I really wanted to come to that. Yes.
so which is that you don't want to say, so if I have to tell somebody that this is the method you have to use and this is how you have to use, now go do it, then there's no part of research, right? You don't need a PhD degree to do that. So the whole idea of PhD research is that you are, after your degree, you're an independent person, you're able to get some results or do something by yourself and explore that area much better. And so I really like that both my supervisors would still assist me, at the same time draw the line, which at that time I would feel like, why are you doing this? But then now I realize that the reason of doing, of them drawing this fine line was really good, because I can now independently do research by myself. So that's really important, that any PhD student should know that if your supervisor doesn't give you exactly things, it doesn't mean that they don't want to help you. They know that you can figure it out and give you the time to figure it out, and then you can go, which you would eventually know that, oh, I did this by myself.
Right. So we have some questions now coming in, and let me first start with a question, a concern that was raised by Victor. So let me just come to Victor's question. So should I focus more on getting a funded PhD program or stick to the present research, which is probably what I'm assuming that's what you are loving to do, which is that's a medical image analysis, and then go for a postdoc later. Okay, so then I'm looking into the other question that was posed by OpenQ. Who should help with topics? Should it be based on experience or curiosity, or should it be suggested by your supervisor so as to attract funding? Kind of related question. So the relation is essentially funding. So first, I would like you to go first, Vandana, about this thing. This is very interesting topic. Like, you know, on one hand you have a funded project, or would you go for a funded project, and on the other hand your heart lies somewhere else, sort of. It's almost like you love somebody who doesn't have money versus you have somebody who has money.
I think with regards to going for a funded project, or like non-funded in a if I understand, is like a self-financed degree, if that's what it means, like, or you have your own funding in other sense. It broadly depends that at least what I have learned is that as long as, so I had this area of interest in complex network, and it didn't matter at that stage to me whether I want to look at complex network in biology or I wanted to look in like the machine learning aspects of complex network. I had this broad area of interest, and then slowly I knew that in my postdoc I can keep adding more and changing as to what I really want to do. So a PhD project, for me, I think I treat that PhD is more to explore the area where you want to gain your expertise in. And once you have that, maybe you can do postdoc in like application of image processing or machine learning, developing models or biology. It really doesn't matter. So in context of a funded project, if it's a PI funded project, the advantage is you have like a fixed time frame, and the PI also has a fixed time frame because he or she is being funded for like maybe 4 or 5 years and has to deliver something at the end of it. So you are in this time clock, which works well because then your PhD is not prolonged. You can get good publications out of it in time rather than wandering about and being like, oh, I can do this, I have so much time with me in hand with my project. So it really, I don't think it doesn't matter too much, as long as you know if this is the area, broad area that you are interested in. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add something is that, so you see, try to go for a funded project definitely. If you do not have, let's say, some sort of scholarship or uh, or some sort of funding, that may be a departmental funding, that may be a university funding. Uh, if that is not happening, definitely I would not advise you to pay out of your own pocket for your own PhD. Uh, so and that can be quite, you believe it or not, that can be quite stressful because if your PhD years get stretched, it can be really, really stressful. So that's one thing. However, what I would like to, if I were in your position, but the way I would like to work, actually I was in that position, to be very honest, when I was a PhD student. So the way I would like to work is this way, that I would want to go for a funded project which has at least some element, some good significant chunk that actually overlaps which are what I originally wanted to do, right? So it should not be completely different than what I really want to do, but there has to be some intersection, which helps me to gather that expertise, that insight while I'm working on the funded project, that will help me to go on for a postdoc or something in the domain where I really want to work on, or maybe, so that actually I have enough experience and enough insight, enough research skill, right? So that's one way to go about it. So don't go with something which is completely obtuse or completely orthogonal to what you always wanted to do. But go for funded project if that is what is available, and if there is no other source of funding, right? But definitely, I would not advise people to pay out of their own pocket to do their PhD. So uh, the related question that Opoku has is who should help with topic, like the topic choosing part, Vandana. That who should be choosing the topic? Should it be the student who should choose the topic, or should it be the supervisor who should be choosing the topic? So
I think when you join in a funded project, it's you
yeah,
already know that this is the project, so you don't
yeah,
have scope to choose the topic. So
right,
it's the supervisor who would drive. In a sense, has a topic defined, and you work for in that topic. But if it's like your own project, this happens at the very beginning when you choose your supervisor. Is that when you're in this phase of finalizing who your supervisor is, you discuss with them what your areas of interest are and whether it overlaps with the areas of interest of a supervisor. And then you can form a project topic like your PhD research area around that overlap. And that's very interesting and also important, is that you get to learn both sides.
Right, right,
So it's just not that you are stuck to what you want to do, but you are also exploring what your supervisor's area of interest are. And that actually broadens more scope later on as well. So when you're in the space of exploring this topic, you realize that, oh, this seems to be not working. Then you can like, oh, I can now move because you have this overlap and you're not stuck at that surface of what you want to do. So you can always switch back to see if this would work. And that is really important
right, right,
when it
right.
comes to like your own project.
By the way, I would be doing, uh, the sessions that we do on Wednesday. I would be having a specific session on how to choose research problem quick enough and not dwell on it, for 2-3 years and then suddenly figure out that, well, nothing is working out. So there are certain techniques that I feel can kind of systematic technique that can help you to quickly get to a very interesting research project or research problem as such. Um, Regarding the other part of the question that Opaku has, which is like, should we be writing together, me as a student writing together with my supervisor on a very interesting topic that we are curious to explore or investigate, but we don't have the funding and we start writing a grant proposal to get the
Abs-
funding.
yes, absolutely. I think that's the best thing to do as well, is to explore and get research funding. So in a way that your project gets funded based on it. So you kind of have a scholarship based on that funding. And also because you write this grant together, and if you're interested in doing a postdoc, or even if you want to go into academic, you always have on the CV that this grant is acquired by two of you, like your supervisor and you, and that adds a lot to your CV. So it's really good if you can apply for a grant together with your supervisor, and also that then you can explore more in your research area. So you already know that this part is interesting and I want to do this. You write a grant to extend further your project. So I think that makes it really good way to go about.
Right, right. So Vidya has a question. Vidya is, one of our very regular community member, and he has a question that students who, let's say, do not have expectations from their supervisor, does that mean like those students who expect nothing out of their supervisor, who just keep working, does that mean that they are intelligent? Uh, that's the first part of the question. And the second part is slightly different. It's more from some of the issues that we face as students from supervisors. Is some supervisors only want to get credit and busy in their own career and and do not invest that much of time for the students. That's the second part two. So let's go with part one first, that whether students are more intelligent, who do not expect anything uh, out of their supervisors. Is that true? So what? Yeah. So what's your take?
So I don't. It doesn't mean that students who don't expect too much of their supervisor are more intelligent. It could mean that you're more independent in doing your
Right.
research, and that would be an advantage for your supervisor, because then they know that they, in a sense, that they can expect more from you. And it's not always that the student is benefiting. Like if I am an early career researcher, and it's important for me that I have publications out, and the only source of me having publication is when I work with a PhD student and understand what they are doing, and only then do I have a recognition for better grants and for a better project. And so it's absolutely important that there is both. And yeah, I mean, everybody just likes someone who is independent in doing their work, but it just depends. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you're more intelligent, it just means that you like being an independent person to work with, and you only go in and talk to your supervisor when you have queries, and you don't go all the time.
Right.
um, so it's just how it gels well with you. And I think it's important that this is reflected to the supervisor as well, because the supervisor should not feel that you're doing something and you're not bothered about coming and interacting with that person. Then the
Right.
supervisor thinks you're doing nothing because you've never made the effort to go and discuss with them. So it actually has both ways. Like some supervisors feel that the more the student comes and interacts, it means they're doing more work. Whereas if the student doesn't come in too often, it just means that they aren't doing too much. But it just means that he or she is actually doing stuff, and at the end showing you everything they have been doing. Which it just depends on how it works for you, and important that you discuss this with your supervisor, in when you actually are selecting a supervisor as well, or in the later stage when you come at a stage where this is what suits you.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add more, Sourish, like
Yeah.
from a
So
point of view.
yeah. Mhm. I just wanted to tell all of you that see, intelligence is actually quite common. Unlike the common notion that it's not common, it's actually very common. What probably is uncommon is there are two extremes. Okay, so I have seen, in my entire career, both working as a researcher as well as supervising a lot of students, and you know both research as well as non-research. What I see is that there are these two extremes. One is that one of those people who are mentally, uh, they are weak, mentally weak, and that's a physiological issue, right? So then there is this other extreme, who are the people who are geniuses. They are the other outliers. So these two are Mother Nature's outliers. We need to understand that. And in between, everybody is intelligent. Everybody is intelligent, because you see that we have to be extremely intelligent to survive. You just need to understand that part. If we were not intelligent, we couldn't have survived in this complex world. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to understand. Now, having said that, there are students. See, when you talk about intelligence, what I feel from a supervisor's point of view, I would love intelligent students in the sense that uh, a if I tell them, give them a pointer that go and study that, and then if you study that, then you will be able to understand this better. How fast does the student do that? I mean, how easily and how quickly can the student understand that, right? And then, come back and apply to whatever research or whatever problem the student is trying to solve. That's number one aspect. Number two aspect, what I would like to see is, over time, is the student getting the skill of asking the right questions? That's the most important thing in research. Are you able to ask the right questions? And that comes to what Vandana was telling, that when you go to your supervisor and discuss something, are you able to ask the right questions, as you are discussing? So even if you don't have an answer, no worries. But as a researcher, are you able to formulate or ask the important questions to be asked? And that is the skill that one as a researcher has to develop foremost. And if that is not happening, then there is no thinking really. Then it again relates to the spoon feeding thing that Vandana mentioned. Then that means that you are not really processing. You are not really acquiring the skill of how to ask the right research, how to find the gaps. Where is the research opportunity? What are the questions to be asked, right? And so that is what it is. When it comes to intelligence, like how quickly you pick up. Uh, uh, but coming to the second part of it, which is kind of related, which is a lot of people would like to get the credit and busy in their own career. So I want to tell you something that first, Vandana, if you have some opinion about that, like we do have to acknowledge that it cannot be unacknowledged that there isn't such cases, right? We can't just say simply deny the situation.
That's true. Like, it actually is really important that the supervisor gives time, because if they are super busy in something else, it just means that you are an additional thing in their whole CV. Like their main focus probably is not in supervision, or like it depends. If it's like a project based PhD, then it's very focused, that the supervisor also would give in time, because he or she wants results in time for their annual report or like get further grants. So in a way, they are more focused, and in that case, PhD and postdocs are really important people in their lab. They build the entire lab. In cases which is common in few countries, at least I can talk about India, is that at times it happens that the professor doesn't give you enough time, and they are busy with other things rather than focusing on your PhD. In that case, I think it's really good to be open enough, be bold, go talk to the supervisor and find out if they really are interested in helping you out or not. It doesn't matter. So it could be like after 2 years of your PhD or in your third year, but it's really important that they give you this time. If they are unable to provide you that time, then it's good that you look for a course supervisor, not just in terms of building your project, but also you would make better collaborations, know more people, and that would help you at a later stage. So try to have other collaborators, discuss with others so that you can still drive your project. And it's not that, oh, this person doesn't give me time, supervisor, and what happens is that you are depressed, which does happen because you've put in so many years of efforts, and you realize that you have done so much, your supervisor is not giving you that time, and you really struggle a lot to get out of it. But at the same time, I think it's good that you be self motivated to find your own path, rather than just having this blame is like, oh, my supervisor doesn't give me the time.
Right.
So if it's you want it out, then you have to find ways out. It doesn't matter at that stage. So it just takes a bit of courage to and boldness to go out and
Yeah.
this doesn't work.
So it just takes me back to the first point, in terms of the selection of the supervisor. And one criteria that you can always keep when you're trying to select a supervisor is how much the potential supervisor is open to collaboration. And you can easily find that out through
Yes.
the research work that he or she does. Right? So that is another thing that you can take into consideration, because it matters a lot, especially in today's in contemporary research. It matters a lot, and it will also matter a lot for you if you when you go out, when you graduate, and you have to now move into start building your professional career, whether it is in academia or whether it is in corporate, right? So a person who is very well networked and who wants to network and who is open to newer ideas, who wants to bring in newer ideas, is always a great person to work with.
Yeah. And I think that really worked out very well for me and my supervisor.
Right.
Like, as I said, that she is completely mathematician, an amazing
Right.
mathematician. And her expertise in biology was something that I initiated to her, but she was super interested to do it. At the same
Right.
time, she also was a bit skeptical in terms of, I like as a supervisor, you also want to make sure that the student they're taking is benefited and is able to do something out of
Right.
it,
Right.
because it's time invested both sides. It's just not that you're investing a student's time and you don't care what the student is doing. Then that's not a good supervisor at all. Like a supervisor is someone who values and respects both sides of like my time as well as the other person's time.
Right. Right.
That's absolutely important. Like a very not no offense, but a very like a self-conserved or egoistic supervisor wouldn't work in that case.
Yeah,
He's a very
kind of like it, Vandana, it kind of comes back to the same selection stage process, because over there, when you are trying to figure out who can be a good supervisor, you're also going to, you should be looking into what stage this professor is in. If this professor is in the fag end of his career, he has nothing to prove, he or she has nothing to prove, right? And let's say that he's so super busy serving committees, national committees, international committees, and so on and so forth, that he hardly gets the time to be in the lab, or in the group, right? Then you need to be careful about at least one thing, that at least there has to be really, really good, solid postdocs like Vandana who can help you out. If at all you want to go, if that is so important, if that lab is so important that you really want to work in that lab, then you really need to make sure that there are really solid postdocs who are there. Um, so if, however, if you at that stage of selection process, you have to make sure that is it something that I want to go into,
Yes.
because there will be such people who are at the fag end of their career. They have already proven what they had to prove, and they have very different goals at that stage, right? Versus a assistant professor, the other extreme, who has yet to get a tenure. Let's say in US system, there is a tenure track sort of system. So the professor will work really, really hard to get the tenure in order to make his or her job permanent. So that is like the super energetic professor versus the tenured professor who would get the tenure, and then his or her primary drive motivation would be now to get more and more funding and to get from get the career incentives. What I'm trying to say is that the career incentive even for the professor is different, and that's another thing I think, Vandana, students need to understand, like what are the stages, what are the career stages of a professor, and how their incentive structure changes as they move from one stage of their uh, one stage to the other stage. So not all, so the professor is not just the same. The incentives that drive a professor are quite different as the professor goes through the different stages.
Absolutely. And also it sometimes does reflect like psychology that a senior professor is more experienced. So his or her recommendation, collaborations is a key. So tomorrow I just complete a PhD and I'm from this lab, I can easily get another position somewhere else, maybe academics or industry. But at the same time, no matter how busy that professor is, it's important that when you need the time, you get that time from that professor. So I have professors now who, as in my project, who are top group leaders, PIs, and part of so many boards. But they make sure that if I need to discuss with them, I fix a day and like this is when we would discuss, and they would make sure to give me that time to discuss. So that's really very, very important part. In terms of at the initial stage, I do agree it's very difficult. Like you may find that, oh, this professor is really good, because no professor is going to talk to you very harsh. And they need students.
It's a dating period. You have to remember that.
So they would be sweet to you, but you would then eventually slowly see how the professor's actual behavior would change eventually. It doesn't mean that they would be harsh, but yeah, to be honest, it does change. So we have to
see,
accept
they are
that.
also in a career pressure. You really need to understand that human part of it. They're not evil people. Okay, so it's like they have their career pressure as well. Multiple different things going on, right? So if you once you become a professor, you'll get to know those things, right? So yeah, so that is there. One question, a very interesting question from Sadhvir Kaur: how to extract more productivity from the supervisor, guidance, or rather, when you are engaging with the supervisor, I think that would be the question. How do you make sure that it's productive, the time that you're spending with the supervisor?
Yes, actually, that's really important.
Maybe that would be one of the last questions that we would have for today.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Is that when you are like, say, let's say you're in your mid stage of your PhD and you're reading stuff, you have like a framework, you have results, then take all of the results. It really doesn't need to be that you have to go and meet your supervisor in a week twice or thrice. Fix a time with your supervisor, say that, oh, I prefer meeting you once a week, or I will just pop in when I have problems, or something like that. So then they would be more open to it. And that kind of work for me is that I would just mail in the morning saying that, are you free in the afternoon? I'm stuck with this. I want to come and discuss. And that would make it more easier. The other way is that if your supervisor has, all of them would have like classes to take, lectures to take, or are super busy, is that you say you keep a monthly project meeting. So every month, you say what you've done for the whole month, go with the results, what your doubts are, well formulated, so you know exact what question you're asking, and go to your supervisor and discuss point based what has to be done. And also go and tell them what you think you should be doing next. And in course
Right.
of the discussion, the supervisor can then add in saying that, oh no, maybe you should try doing this, or maybe you can try doing this. And if you have not done anything, just be honest and say that I couldn't do anything in this time, which is
Right. Right.
fine, because you can't keep working all the time. So you may not be that productive
And
one month.
and one thing that I really feel like no update is also an update. It's an extremely important update.
Yeah.
Many people don't understand that part.
Yeah. But make sure that even if you have not done anything, as Sourish said, that even if you have not done anything, go and just talk to your supervisor casually. Hi, how are you? I haven't done anything. I'll get back to you later. I have been doing these things. Maybe you were busy with something else, maybe with other stuff. That's fine. Go and tell them, because it's important that in face of your PhD, you have to balance both. You can't just be doing your PhD. You have to have a balance in
And I
your
can guarantee you
work life.
something. I can guarantee you guys something. The same thing happened to your supervisors also when they were doing their PhD. So don't worry about that part.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I would like to add is that always interact with other PhD students.
Yeah.
Make friends with them. Don't be this bubble of if you're a group, just don't be a bubble within your group. Go talk to people outside your group, make friends outside, spend time with them, and have some sport activity so that you have a fresh mind. You're not just like slogging in, like at least in the lab, pipetting, or maybe in front of the computer coding all day. So make sure
Right.
you treat your PhD as a job, but as a productive thing. So you're going to spend time 9 to 5. That's it. You go do what other stuff you want to do.
See, I'll tell you, PhD is a marathon, not a sprint. You need to understand that. So if you take it as a sprint, you will burn yourself out, and then it's a disaster. It's going to be a disaster after that. So that's one thing. The second thing is that your productivity is also directly dependent upon your emotional strength. How emotional goodness, or how happy you are. So the happier you are emotionally, you will be way more creative and productive. That's how it is.
And if you have issues with your supervisor, you're unable to talk to them, talk to your colleagues, your other PhD students, to figure out and discuss what their viewpoints are, or to other lab members whom you think are close enough. And so in that way, you would know whether there's something that you should change, or is that a problem that's there for everybody in the group.
So
So
one last, continue, yes.
that's what I mean to say is, like, make friends outside your
Right,
group or
absolutely.
outside, and do maintain this social life. Just don't
Social
be.
life, yes. Yeah, go to theaters, make friends, and do some. You need to have some hobby as well, music or sports or whatever that is. That's very important. Uh, so I guess that would be like and whenever you go and engage with your supervisor, do homework first. Make sure that you have done enough research on the questions that you have when you have questions and when you have discussions. So do your homework, do your research. Just don't go there without any research. Okay. So that's another thing, to make sure that the engagement of the discussion is productive, and make sure that you take proper notes. It's a structured note. And one of the reasons why we made Rax is so that actually you can structure all these things, in a nice way inside Rax. So for those people who are yet to, there are really lovely videos where you can actually watch how to be more productive while you're working as a team with your supervisor. And on coming Wednesday, I am going to talk specifically on that part, right? Okay, so thanks a lot. With this, I'm going to conclude today. Thanks a lot so much, Vandana. We are going to have Vandana. We will be requesting Vandana more often to keep coming as and when she gets time. You know, she's extremely busy working on this COVID-19 research. She's essentially figuring out what's the correlation between cancer and COVID-19. That's absolutely exciting, especially at this in this situation. Is going to be really, really important, whatever she is doing. So I'm not going to disturb her too much because we all need a vaccine and we all need to figure out how to deal with COVID-19. But sometimes I will try to make sure that I will try to make her come back with yet another exciting topic. So thank you so much, Vandana, for giving us the time today.
Thank you, Sourish. It was really nice joining in, and I think I wish I had something like this during my PhD. Really good forum, but yeah, it's really nice. So I would love to be back as well. Thanks everyone for joining in.
Yeah, and be very, very safe, everyone. And if you have any questions, I've given you my email address. Just send me emails. Thank you.
Thank you.